My name is Linda Mae McLemore. This is the data overview for Ferguson Elementary School. The purpose of this presentation is to identify academic strengths and areas for improvement, ask questions about results that are unsatisfactory, and identify opportunities for growth in teaching and learning. We will be doing this by looking at school demographics, data, 3rd through 5th grade Georgia milestone data from 2016, 2017, 2018, Lexile level data, and 4th grade ELA math district scores from 2017, 2018, and 2019. A little about Ferguson Elementary. It is part of the Gwinnett County Public School System. Ferguson is located in Duluth, Georgia. It is part of the Meadow Creek cluster and opened its doors to students in 2010. It is considered a Title I school. Ferguson Elementary school enrollment count has stayed fairly consistent. However, there is a high transient rate here at Ferguson. Something to consider is the transient rate affecting data scores academically. Ferguson Elementary School, you will notice that the data that is provided on this slide is showing the enrollment based on race and ethnicity. As we see in 2015, 2016, all the way to 2018, the Hispanic population counts for over half of the school's population. Our next highest race and ethnicity is African American. 5% Asian have stayed consistent with a 1% increase in 2017-2018. Something to consider. Are we creating a school culture that is representative of the students that we serve at Ferguson Elementary? As we look at this data, we see the subgroups provided: limited English proficiency, free and reduced lunch, and students with disabilities. In 2015-2016, we noticed that the limited English proficiency of our students was 52.52%. It decreased slightly in 2016-2017 to 48%, but maintained and moved up to 56%. So when we think about the 57% of our school population for 2015, which is 1,067 students, we see that 52% of those students are considered limited English proficiency. When we look at all 3 years represented in this data, we see that almost 90% on average of our students at Ferguson Elementary School are eligible for free and reduced lunch. For students with disability, it has increased from 2015-2016 to 2017-2018 from 11% to 14% of our student population are those with disabilities. We are going to take a look at the Georgia Milestone Assessment. It is important to note that there are 4 levels that is considered for the GMAS assessment. The level 1 is the beginning learners, which will be represented in red. The developing learners will be represented in gold, while the proficient is in green and distinguished learners in yellow. According to the Georgia Milestone Assessment, we expect our students to move towards proficient and distinguished to show mastery of the knowledge and skills at that grade level represented. Looking at the 3rd grade ELA, we see that the amount of students that are at the beginning has stayed around 37%, 38% over the course of 3 years. Our goal is to try to move our kids with less students being in the beginning level and more students moving towards the proficient and distinguished level. We see that represented with our math GMAS data as well. We noticed that for Ferguson Elementary School, we saw that in 2016, 22% of students that took the GMAS were at the beginning level, whereas in 2018, only 13% of the students that took the math for third grade were in the beginning, and that is something to be proud of. When looking at our fourth grade ELA and the fourth grade math, GMAT scores, we again are noticing that from 2016 to 2018, specifically in the mathematics, we see that Ferguson in 2016 had 23% of the students who took the assessment were at the beginning, whereas in 2018, only 15% of the students that took it were in the beginning level. We are showing that there were more students in the proficient in 2018 as compared to 2016. Again, we are seeing that there are slow increases to move our kids more to the proficient distinguished level, which is expected at this grade. As we look at the fifth grade ELA, there's one thing to note that in 2016, more students, 34% to be exact, were in the beginning, whereas in 2018, only 17% of the students that took the fifth grade ELA milestone assessment were at the beginning level. This again is a positive increase on something that we want to continue to see. Less student in the beginning, however, we are still not seeing students enter into that proficient and distinguished level. And that is something that is consistent when we look at the data for the ELA as well as the data for the math when we look at the grade level of fifth grade. It is very important to note that reading is a very important part of the Georgia milestone as well as any assessment that is taken throughout our school, whether it is on the district level, the school level, or the state level. Well, here the Lexile level is considered a tool that can be used by teachers, parents, and students. The higher the Lexile measure, the higher the student's reading level. This is a framework, which means that the lowest is 5 Lexile and the highest possible measurement is 2,000 Lexile. The measure of how difficult a text is or a student's reading ability is what the Lexile level is considered. Students receive a Lexile score when they take the Georgia milestone. This score is received based on the reading and vocabulary items that the students are assessed on. This Lexile score is used for multiple purposes to determine whether a student will meet a particular criteria. This is also a level that we as teachers use at Ferguson to guide as a formative assessment as well, to also do small groups and specialized instructions. On this slide, you will see that I have included a scale and the framework that tells us where students should be reading from grade 1 to grade 12 using our Lexile band. You will then notice that we have what Ferguson Elementary School Lexile performance is from 2015-2016 to 2017-2018. I wanted to break down a little further to look closer for our third grade students. When we think about where our third grade students should be reading, we know that they should be reading at 520 Lexile to 820 Lexile. And I noticed that the number of students reading above 820 increased from 2016 to 2017-2018, which is something that we can be successful for. We also noticed that for fourth grade, students reading more than 740 Lexile increased. And so we can see that in 2015-2016, you had almost 50% of students who took the test were reading less than 740 Lexile. And when we come to 2017-2018, that number has decreased. There was a significant drop from 2015. 47% of fifth graders were reading less than 830 lexile, compared to that 2016-2017 where the number was only 23%. That was almost a 50% increase of students that moved up the lexile level to where they should be for the year. When we look at our district assessment, this is from Gwinnett County, and they also have a scale. We expect our students to be in the proficient distinguished level to show mastery of the standard that they are assessed. I wanted to specifically take a look at fourth grade math district assessment. What I noticed for fourth grade district assessment is that in 2016-2017, you will notice that we at Ferguson Elementary, those students that are proficient and distinguished were 40%, whereas the cluster only 33%. And so you can see that we were higher than the cluster. However, we were still lower than the district over all 3 years. When we're looking at ELA data, we notice that Ferguson outperformed the cluster over all 3 years for those students that are scoring at proficient and distinguished. So going back over our data, what did the data have to say? Fourth grade students have made some gains, especially in the area of ELA as compared to our cluster. As a school, we need additional support in ELA if we want to provide the instructional needs of our English language learners and those reading below grade expectation. More school-wide interventions to build reading fluency and strengthen math concepts and skills is needed. We are striving to improve students' knowledge and skills across all content. With the use of data to drive instruction, teachers at Ferguson are focusing on small strategy groups to build content and skills in literacy and math. What are some of the next steps? Well, I leave these questions in hopes to help us as we think about moving forward with our data. What other interventions can we provide for our students who are not mastering content as stated by the district? How can our data teams support teachers in improving their instruction and student learning? How will we use this data to close the achievement gap for our students? And lastly, how can we improve reading instruction to support our English language learners?